I'm Scott Hall, and this is the Manufacturing Report.
Obviously, if we're not working, we can't spend that money, and so all the small mom and pop joints, they dried up. Walmart left town. Walmart left from here. So it's pretty bad. It's gotten pretty bad since the blast furnace shut down. And we're hoping with the arc furnace coming that maybe some of these shops start coming back and you know, opening back up again, and the city starts to resurge again based on the money that's going to come in off the arc furnace.
Today, we're in Fairfield, Alabama. It's just outside of Birmingham. And for more than 100 years, it's been a steelmaking town. In this valley just behind me stood a blast furnace that cranked out American steel for more than 100 years. It was recently torn down and decommissioned. But the steel tariffs have brought some new hope to this valley. We'll talk to steelworkers, to members of the community, to find out why. That's next on the Manufacturing Report. We are in Fairfield, Alabama, at the United Steelworkers Local 1013 Hall. Here in Fairfield, there's a proud tradition of steelmaking, and I'm pleased to be joined by three folks who have a lot of experience, not only in making steel, but also in leading their local brothers and sisters through both good times and bad times. With me are Kevin Key, the local president. I'm also joined by Mark Shields, the vice president, and by Seth Skolnick, who heads up the pension and benefits work for the union. Welcome to the podcast, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Great. So I gave the brief overview, but maybe you can dive in and tell a little bit more about your story for our listeners. And why don't we start with you, Kevin?
I started out here in 2004. I started as a production worker all the way, sweeping floors, laborer, went to loading docks, things like that on the finishing end. 09, as you all know, we didn't do too well in 09. They started laying folks off, and when that happened, I took the money that I had been given from the military, went to college, got my electrical degree, moved into electronics at that time, and I've been in the hot mill and electronics ever since until we got elected last year here at the hall.
Great. And Kevin, what did you do? You alluded to it before. You had military service before you were in steelmaking.
I was an aviation ordnanceman in the United States Navy.
That's great. So right there is the intersection of economic and national security. Mark, how about yourself?
I started in 2000 here and started out on labor and began going to maintenance school my first day on the job out here. And through 2 years of school, graduated, got into maintenance, did an apprenticeship for two more years, and have been there ever since.
So that's about 19 years here.
Yes,
then,
yes.
In Fairfield. Okay.
Yep. 09 was rough. 2015 was worse.
Yeah.
And as just about as soon as the tariffs came back, our tariffs got put on, we started back working pretty regular. It's been a big windfall for us.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we hope to unpack, I think, a little bit to explain to our listeners what that policy has meant for the community and for the mill here. And Seth, how about your experience with steelmaking?
I started in 2000. I hired behind the Cubot furnaces. 2003, I went to work at the casters, which is actually pouring the steel into the molds. 2009 was a little downturn. Got laid off from the casters. Went to work at the powerhouse / boiler house at Fairfield Works. I was there until 2016 when they shuttered the mill and shut the blast furnace down and pretty much all of Fairfield. Got recalled back in 2017 to the pipe mill. Got to be the union benefit coordinator down here start of this year, and I'm excited to see where Fairfield's going in the future with our electric arc furnace coming to town.
Yeah, it's a big development here, something we've been watching closely. And Seth, how long have they been making steel here in this valley, which is just outside of Birmingham, Alabama? We're maybe 8 or 10 minutes outside of Birmingham. Yeah.
In 07, we had a rally here, a little celebration, 1907.
So
And we-
1907.
And in 2007, we had that 100-year anniversary.
Yeah. And I know,
And that went all the way till 2015 when we shuttered in August.
yeah. Yeah, and Birmingham was kind of a manufacturing town, I guess, with some of the ironworks and the foundries and all of that, and the intersection of, because there is some iron, or there was some iron ore in the state and some coal, and so railroads made a lot of sense to make steel here. And I think some people have called it the Pittsburgh of the South,
Little
right?
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I've read that a lot. They
Yeah.
call Birmingham Little Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So it's been a big part of the economy for a long time. And so, Kevin, I know that we were here, the Alliance, about 5 years ago when there was this surge of imported pipe coming in. And I think it's important for our listeners to know that one of the key products out of this mill is the pipe mill, which goes a lot into energy products. And so, what was at stake back 5 years ago? What were we facing here?
Well, we were facing almost the mill had got hurt so much by the unfair trade that was going on that we were on the verge of, shutting down, maybe not doing business anymore. We had done cut probably 200 or 300 people. We were running at a little over 600 at the mill, and we're down to I think a little less than 400 at one time, and we were on the verge of dying out because of what was going on at the time, and it happens it happened in 2009, and then we got the trade in place for a couple years then, and then it started again in say 13, 14, somewhere in there. It started slow, and then 15 really just took us down, and we've slowly but surely started coming back up again since we've got the tariffs put back on, and we're doing pretty well right now.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to note that in those cases, like after 2009, and even going back to the early 2000s when there'd been another kind of steel crisis, and for the pipe products in 2015, it was the United Steelworkers and the company that brought this case. This wasn't like Washington acting
That's right. It was
on its own. This was like you all got together and filed this case with the Commerce Department and said we need some tariffs on some of these specific imports.
and then all of our guys, especially at International, and help with guys like y'all helping us out and doing all the legwork and research, and because no one else was wanting to help, and between the company and the unions, they were the ones taking this to Congress and saying, look, you're going to kill us out. This is going to hurt the country if you do this, or if you don't stop it.
Right. So, and I think that's important to note is that up until this point, up until the last year or two, it had been the industry and the union at its own expense kind of saying, look, there are a lot of unfairly traded imports here. We can compete on a level playing field, but it makes no sense for this Korean pipe to come into these Texas oil fields, which y'all are like less than a day's drive from. It made no sense at all. So, and some relief came, but it was probably a little bit too little, too late. It sounds like for a lot of the workers.
Yes, there was here recently. It's been picked back up with the announcement of the arc furnace and things like that. But up until the last 4 or 5 years have been pretty hard out here. I mean, like Seth alluded to earlier, he was part of the group that got laid off, and there was a bunch of men and women on that side, company and union alike. I mean, usually when people think of the company and the union, they think of us as being, always fighting with each other. But when it came to something like this is all of us. We're all going to be out of work, all going to lose our jobs. Yeah. So everybody came together and right. been working really hard the last 4 or 5 years to get the tariffs passed, to get the business back on its feet again.
Yeah, and maybe I'll turn to Seth about that, because I mean, layoffs are, I think, really hard for anybody to absorb, and then you stretch that out to the family, to the other workers, and then to the other folks that were servicing the plant too. I think of like the truck drivers, the rail workers.
I had kinfolk that was part of the contractor based out here.
Yeah.
I mean, and you see 500 plus, 600 plus people go out there on the street, and not knowing where that next paycheck's coming from is detrimental.
Yeah.
The things that have happened to us with here lately with all the tariffs could have been done 30 years ago.
Yeah.
The steel mill in the South, We just imploded the last blast furnace in the South. And that's just crazy to think about, that it's been there that long.
Yeah.
When you take a 100-year tradition and you take that away from a community, you can look around Fairfield right now and see all the boarded up windows, all the towns are out of business. Right next door to the Union Hall, you used to go get your dry cleaning done there. Now it's shuttered and closed.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just like it's killed the whole
Matter
the
of
whole
fact,
system of the city.
actual city crest for Fairfield is our blast furnace in the background.
Wow.
So the crest
Yeah.
of the city, the symbol of the
Yeah.
city, is our blast furnace with the smokestacks in the background, and
Right.
it's no more.
And
It's
that
gone.
blast furnace is gone.
It's gone.
Yeah. And what was that day like? I imagine you guys remember it. Mark,
Yeah,
what was that?
it was pretty sad. My dad worked out here for 46 years, and he said he cried a little bit
Yeah.
when it was gone. He started out here at that blast furnace, and so it was a very sad day. That furnace, this valley had been making steel here in the South for a very long time, and it was a big disappointment to see it go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I mean, that's the physical symbol, I think, of what a powerful force in the community for a century. It's a pretty traumatic experience. What happened to the town itself? Because it had to shrink the tax base and the public services.
The town has been almost decimated here in Fairfield, locally around the mill. All the contractors, just the guys coming in, men and women coming in out of work, stopping and getting a sandwich, or stopping and getting their dry cleaning done, or stopping, obviously if we're not working, we can't spend that money. And so all the small mom and pop joints, they dried up. Walmart left town.
Yeah.
Walmart
Wow.
left from here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
pretty bad. It's gotten pretty bad since the blast furnace shut down.
Yeah.
And we're hoping with the arc furnace coming that maybe some of these shops start coming back and opening back up again, and the city starts to resurge again based on the money that's going to come in off the arc furnace.
Do you all remember back to the 26 campaign when Trump was talking about this and bringing steel jobs back and saying he was going to do tariffs? Yeah.
Yeah, I was excited
Yeah.
because we've been getting beat up by foreign imports for a long time, and for him to come up and put tariffs on and give us an even playing field has really helped us tremendously.
Yeah.
You can see the company is spending money here, a lot of money here at our facility, a lot of money at every one of the other facilities. I
So
think
it's
it's like
Gary, Granite City, Illinois, Western Pennsylvania, the Mon Valley Works. Yeah.
Yeah,
Lone Star just
Lone
opened
Star.
some stuff
Yeah.
back up,
yeah. What is it, like $2 billion or something?
somewhere
like
around
that?
in there
Mm-hmm.
combined.
Yeah.
So they're taking big steps to make big improvements at all the facilities. We're hiring people right now. We've got a lot of folks back to work,
Yeah.
and if we're making money, we're spending money.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That was
I
the
don't
thing
mind
about the
spending.
blast furnace and everything that was here. It wasn't just a job. This was an institution to a lot of people. Like Mark said earlier, his dad worked 46 years out here. You know how many people
his
you
life.
talk to
Yeah.
that say, I grew up
His
as a
whole working
kid
life.
and U.S. Steel put food on my, on my
Yeah.
plate from my father, and now I do it working out here. And
Yep.
so it was
My
a
son
really
worked
sad
out
time
here.
when they shut everything like that down, because this
Yeah.
is things that family just knew they were going to do for a long time. I'm going to go out there and do what
Yeah.
my dad did and work at U.S. Steel, and
Yeah.
and then that got taken away.
Right. And Mark, you were just saying 3 generations?
Three
At the-
generations.
at the
My
steel
son
mill?
was out here, and he got laid off in 2015. I think he only had about 5 years with the company.
Okay.
So he didn't get called back.
Yeah. And I'm going to guess, you all set me straight here, that if you lose your job at this mill, if you're laid off, there's probably not a lot of other jobs around here that pay comparable to what you're able to earn in the mill. Is that a fair statement?
Very
To-
very fair.
That's very, very true.
Yeah. So so even if the unemployment rate is low and you're able to hire on somewhere, in all likelihood, your quality of life is going to be a lot different than it was
Yes.
before. So okay, so let's fast forward to 2017, 2018. So Trump is in office. He starts this investigation to see if imports are threatening our national security. We AAM steelworkers, they strongly support this investigation. He sits on it for a while. Things actually get worse while he's sitting on it, but he finally does it. Says, I'm going to put these tariffs on. And then the rest of the world is like tearing their hair out, saying, how could he do this? This is terrible. This is going to tank the economy. This is like a complete violation of our agreements. I just want to ask you, how did it feel here when he did that?
We loved it here. I mean, we felt like we've been put on the back burner for a long time, and the steel industry in general, that people just, I don't think a lot of people understand the importance of steel and what it means to the country, the infrastructure of the country, the military, the things that go on. I mean, do you want to be putting foreign steel in your tanks and your planes and things like this? I don't want that. I was in the military. I have a lot of friends that are still in the military. I have a lot of friends that work for military contractors, you know. So it's very real to someone like me who's dealt with it pretty much the majority of my life, being in steel or with the military and national security and things like that. So, I mean, I don't think a lot of people understand what it means to this country to have steel-making capabilities here.
Yeah, seems like it's taken for granted a lot. And so, Seth, I just want to ask you, so the tariffs, as best as you could tell, they've made a positive difference here. Is that fair to say?
Big time. I mean, when you go back to '09, and you look at what you look at what the government did for the automotive manufacturers.
Yeah, the big rescue bailout.
Buying them out.
Right, yeah.
At that time, I was laid off. I didn't
Yeah.
have a home to go back to for a couple of weeks. And then you see Trump come in and you see all this going, like, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? And then when he did it, I was ecstatic. You can't believe how happy everybody here was, because we knew that food was going to be on that table for our families.
You know, there were some like industrial state Democrats who have supported this. Like I think of Sherrod Brown up in Ohio. And so this is like there's been some bipartisan support for this, but there's also been a lot of pushback. And because I think, in this, in the national politics today, if Trump is for something, a lot of other people are just against it. Reflects, well, I don't care what it is, I'm against it. So if you had the opportunity to talk to a Democratic candidate for president who was to come down here to Fairfield, someone like Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders or any of the other 20 who are running, what would you tell them about trade policy?
I think at the end of the day, when you go and you start talking about trade and policy, we need to quit worrying about what color someone is, if they're blue or they red, and we need to worry about the country and what's best for the country, not your party and the interest of your party. This is about America and what's best for America, not one group or the other. This is for everyone. And that's the way every group needs to look at it. Not about what, this is our stance. This should be the country's stance. So this is for national security. This is for the betterment of infrastructure in this country. And this should be something we're all behind. It doesn't matter what party you're in, what affiliation you're in, doesn't matter.
Yeah. And so Mark, I want to just follow up. So some people are saying, well, the steel industry is doing great now. We should take the tariffs off. What should the next president do, whether it's Trump or a Democrat?
Uphold the tariffs. Like Kevin was saying, this is about everybody. And and right now everybody in this country is working. I mean, unemployment's down at 3-point-something%, all-time lows. And if people are working and making money, they're spending money. And when they're spending money, manufacturers have got to make goods for them to buy.
Yeah.
And it's a big circle.
Yeah.
Right now, people are making money and spending it. So I know I enjoy spending mine.
Yeah.
My wife does too. So
Right. Yeah. So this is, and Seth, I want to ask you, because Alabama, obviously there's steel making here, there's auto production, there's aerospace, so there's a lot of people that consume metals. But, if you listen to some people in Washington, it's like these tariffs have been a disaster. Like they've completely wrecked the economy, even though unemployment is 3.9% or whatever. Does the rest of the Alabama economy seem to be doing okay? I mean, the automakers and all of that, do they seem to be doing fine?
They're hiring every day.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
if you've got a special set of skills,
Uh-huh.
as far as electrical
Yeah.
background,
Yeah.
automation background,
Yeah. You're going to get a
sky's the
job.
limit for you here.
Yeah. Before I go, I had two questions. And one was in February 11th, when that announcement was made about the electric arc furnace. What was that like for you? And I'll start with Seth and then work our way down the line. Yeah.
Very humbling for me.
Yeah.
They shuttered that project in August of 15. It was being built at the time. To see that steelmaking capability come back in this valley after it had been here since 1907
Yeah.
was a very, very humbling day for me.
Yeah. Did it feel like almost and I know it's not a blast furnace, obviously, but it's the latest technology, but it's about the future. Too.
Exactly.
You all ought to be able to do more with it here. How about, Mark, how about you?
Yeah, it was great news, great news. You know, we being able to make our own steel instead of having to purchase it
Yeah.
from our competitors is going to let us be a lot more profitable. And if you're a facility that you are not profitable, you know, you're not going to be around very long. So this is going to help keep us here for a while.
That's good to hear. And what did it mean in terms of jobs? I mean, I assume this is going to mean some more jobs for the local members as well.
Yeah, right out the gate, around 150 more new
Okay.
jobs here,
Okay.
and that's not including contractors and
Yeah.
all the other people that's going to be doing work out here. That's just the people that's going to be from our union hall, working at the mill. So it's 150 minimum to start, and then we're going to go from there. I just think everybody here in Fairfield in the valley that's worked here for years. To me, the way it felt was like we could breathe again after they've shut the blast furnace down. Everybody's been on pins and needles. Am I going to have a job? Am I going to get laid off? I'm watching my friends go out the door.
Yeah.
And now the announcement comes that the arc furnace is definitely coming. We're going to build it. We're going to put the money behind it. And I just feel like people's families, the city, everybody around here could breathe again and say, look, it's going to come back. We're going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good to hear. I wanted to close with this question because a lot of what you hear on cable news or read in the press is about, a part of it's about Trump, obviously. Well, a lot of it's about Trump. But when it comes to trade policy, it's either you're for free trade, which is all good and forward looking, or you're for protection, which is like yesterday, and it's about saving jobs that can't be saved. Seems to be. I don't know. The evidence is electric arc furnace made possible again by the tariffs, and it's going to create some jobs here. But what would you tell all these debaters, basically? What is trade policy in simple terms to you?
I mean, you can say we're for free trade and all that, but I mean, we've bailed out the banks in the past with the subprime loan stuff. We've bailed out the auto industry. We've bailed out all these other industries. So I don't understand the backlash at steel when it comes down to it. I mean,
Yeah, they all oppose it too, right?
That's
the
right.
bankers and the auto companies. Like, we can't do these tariffs.
It was okay when they had their
Yeah.
hands out and saying, hey,
Yeah.
the country needs us and we have to have this. Well, they need us too.
Yeah.
And they have to have the services that we provide. It's no different than the auto industry or the bankers or anybody else that's put their hands out to the government or wanted something. So this is not something that's new. This has been going on for years and years and years about tariffs or about trades or about the government helping, solidify certain trades because the country needs them, and it's nothing different with us.
Yeah. Mark, what does trade policy mean to this valley, to the steelmaking valley?
As long as they're in place, we're working.
So fair trade, like if we need tariffs, that there's tariffs in place. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We've got to be on an even playing field. We can compete with anybody. Our quality is top notch, and all we want is an even playing field.
Yeah. Yeah. And Seth?
If you go back in history in Alabama and look at all these old textile mills that were on every corner, it seemed like,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
and you look at what that textile industry did over the course of 20, 30 years, the steel industry is right on its heels. If those tariffs are not in place to save that, we will not have an industry.
Yeah, yeah. And that industry, I'll just close with this. In Fairfield, you guys make steel, but that ends up somewhere. A lot of it ends up in pipes that are transmitting energy sources all around this country, and there's obviously a lot of other uses for the steel that you all are putting out. But if that's not essential to our country's future, I don't know what is. And I think most Americans would much rather see American workers with American steel and iron making those products than relying on countries like China to do it. So, well, gentlemen,
Absolutely.
yeah, thanks for joining us on the podcast. And I'm glad that, at least for all of you, part of your job in the weeks coming up is going to be bringing new people on and getting them orientated, getting them signed up for benefits. That's got to be a pretty great experience compared to some of what you've had to deal with the last few years.
I think it's the happiest any of us ever been about doing more work.
Well, that's a good note to close on then. As you can tell, the Steel Trade Action has been critically important in revitalizing the steel mill and bringing hope for some steel workers to get those jobs back. And as important as it was inside the mill, the Steel Trade Action is having powerful impacts in the community. We speak with Greg Johnson and Todd Porteous to explain why.
It's positive now. It's really positive. We're hiring people. We're back. We've hired about a third more of the people and still looking for people. And once we lost people, it's hard to try to get them back because you've lost them to somebody else. I've worked for U.S. Steel my whole life and been a great company to work for. And I started when I was 18 and I'm 64 now, and I'm gonna see this project through, and hopefully when I leave it'll be going just like it was when I started.
It seemed like in 2015 the steel industry just completely shut down. It just felt like everything was going overseas, and I seen guys lose their jobs, families, shut down. A lot of problems came from that. So we can't go backwards. We got to keep going forward and don't forget about the industry.
And that will do it for the Manufacturing Report for this week. I want to thank the United Steelworkers for opening their hall to us, and for the steelworkers who gave their time today to share these stories, as well as to the members of the community and businesses about how the steel industry here has impacted their fortunes and their jobs. I also want to thank the great teams at E18 and AAM for making this episode possible, and for you, the listeners, for giving us great episode ideas. Now, for more information about the steel industry, its impact on American security, as well as how the tariffs are impacting jobs, you can go to our website, which is americanmanufacturing.org. You can connect with us on Facebook, or you can tweet us at KeepItMadeInUSA. I'm Scott Paul, and until next time, together we can keep it made in America.